So I've been taking care of plants for a little over a year now, and when I first started, I watched basically every single video on how to take care of plants and what the best practices were for taking care of plants and just everything you could know because I was an absolute beginner. So what I've done for this video is I've kind of just taken all the things that I've learned from those beginner videos and put them together to form a things I wish I knew before I started taking care of plants video, because these are things that nobody really necessarily explicitly states or like makes them sound like they're very important, and these are things that I always thought like, oh, you must do this, you have to do this, and just turned out to like not be true at all. And if I'd known a lot of these things, I probably would have done, or I mean I know I would have done a lot of stuff differently when I first started getting into houseplants, and it probably would have saved a few of my houseplants as well. So I hope that you find this helpful. First, and probably the biggest thing out of this entire list, if like you take nothing away from this list, please just listen to this one thing, but that is not to water on a set schedule. And what I mean by that is like, you can water every week, that's fine, but I see so many like charts and infographics and all that sort of stuff telling you to water every 2 days, every 3 days, whatever, and it's like clockwork. That's how they suggest to do it, and that's just, it's not how plants work, you know? Like it might be a case of like, oh, this plant does need water every single week, but it's never a set amount of days unless you have a completely controlled environment and the plant drains the same exact way because it gets the same exact temperature, same exact airflow, same exact everything. And it's not the way plants work. And I didn't know this starting out. I thought like, oh yeah, you can get it down to a schedule. So there's plants like string of pearls where it says water every 2 to 3 weeks. And then I watered it once every 2 weeks and then it died, or like every 3 weeks and it could still die. It doesn't matter what day of the week it is. It's not like, oh, you didn't water me on that Monday when you watered me last Monday. It just doesn't work like that. And not a lot of these infographics or people telling you this in these videos necessarily state that. So people that are complete beginners like I was might end up overwatering their plants and killing their plants because they don't know any better. Like a much better thing to say on these sort of like graphics and just charts and all that sort of stuff is just water when it's dry, or water when like, you know, the top 2 inches is dry and just stuff like that. And I know some of them have gotten better now and they do start saying that sort of stuff, but just the exact like clockwork calendar day, water on this day and then water on this day just doesn't work, because you need to check it every single time you go to water it. The next thing I didn't know, because just not many people, you know, swear by it, and it's really fine because this is like more of a preferential thing, but I thought that you always like, you got, you know, ceramic pots to plant the pot directly into it. Like when I first started keeping houseplants, I didn't really know cash pots were very much like of a thing at all. So I remember the first palm tree I got a big ceramic pot for it, and it was the like same size as the nursery pot, so it wasn't like it was too big or anything, but I planted the plant directly into the pot. And it made it a lot harder for me to water it because I had it in like a basement apartment and I didn't have any drainage, and I just didn't know. The roots were totally fine inside the nursery pot too, because when I took it out of the nursery pot, it wasn't root bound at all. So I could have kept it in the nursery pot and just put it in the cash pot, and the watering situation would have been much better, and I would have been able to take care of it a lot better, and it might not have even died. Like who knows, it might have been able to be saved. So now I have some that are potted directly into ceramic pots just for, you know, either style purposes or just sizing purposes, but most of mine are still in the nursery pots, and they stay in nursery pots even when I size up. I just repot them into a bigger nursery pot. This just makes it so much easier for me to check the soil and to let the water drain out and to kind of just interchange pots and keep things where I want them to be, rather than having to restrict myself by having a certain pot in a certain spot, because it gets really complicated for me, and it's so hard to find pots with good drainage. And I know you can put stuff in the bottom to kind of mimic the drainage effect, but it's still like that water's got to go somewhere, so it just doesn't work as well in my opinion. But yeah, I could have saved my palm tree probably, and then I also potted some lavender directly into a pot with 0 drainage. And if you know anything about lavender, they need like really good drainage because they thrive on like drier soil. And it wasn't getting dry soil in a ceramic pot with no drainage, and it would just sit there in water, and I didn't know any better because I was doing everything else right. I just didn't know that it needed to drain out. Another thing I didn't know was that you can grow plants, at least temporarily, in water. I had seen people grow some plants in like little vases or anything like that, and I thought that they had to do something special to make it so the plant could grow, or that it had to be a specific or a special kind of plant to grow in water. But no, it turns out after lots of trial and error on my part, you can literally grow a plant for quite a while in just plain water. Granted, this isn't the best thing to do for your plants because the water doesn't have a lot of nutrients that the plants need to grow and like grow bigger and stronger and all that sort of stuff. But it's totally fine to do on a temporary measure. I usually do this if I notice that my plant has a bad case of spider mites or any like other kind of bug. I usually take it out of the soil and get rid of that soil because, you know, the bugs could be in the soil as well, or, you know, have laid eggs in the soil and stuff like that. So a lot of times if I'm just a bit overwhelmed, I'll just take the plant completely out of its soil and put it in water. And this hasn't, like, I haven't gone wrong with this once. So this is a pretty fail-safe way, in my opinion, to actually like save a plant when you don't really have as much time as you'd like to completely treat the soil or completely do what you would want to save that plant if it was just in its soil the entire time. And this also goes for cuttings. Like, I grow a lot of my cuttings for a long time in water, and I know a lot of people don't like doing that, but that's been one of the best ways for me to do it because I can actually see what's going on, and it's been a really good learning experience for me because I've learned like the process of the roots growing and, you know, what they like, what they don't like, and all that sort of stuff. So it's helped me learn more about the plants by keeping them in water longer because I can actively see what's going on underneath, like what would be the soil, but it's in the water, so I can see what would be happening in the soil and I can learn more about the growth process of those plants. Another one that took me a very long time to get used to, and I learned it pretty early on, but it just, I don't know, you see all the pictures on Instagram and all their plants always look like pristine and perfect, and it never seems like they have any issues at all. So like anytime I got like a yellow leaf or just like a dying leaf or anything like that, I would freak out because I was like, my plants are being taken care of good enough, I'm not doing a good enough job, and just kind of beat myself up over it. But I didn't know that like oftentimes the old leaves will get yellow and die off just as like a natural cycle of the plant. So a lot of times if leaves are yellowing, it's not necessary for you to pull out the entire plant, look at the roots, see what's going on, and like try to analyze what you've done wrong. Like for instance, just like last week, one of my Scindapsus dropped one of the oldest leaves on the plant, and I didn't freak out at all because now I know that that's completely normal, and it's just like you drop so many hairs a day. Plants will do the same thing, but they just don't have as many leaves as you have hair on your head. So in order for a plant to continue growing, it does need to get rid of some of those old leaves. And you know, you can prolong the life of those leaves depending on how good care you take of your plants, but it is just a natural cycle that will happen and you can't really avoid it at all. So this is one thing I just wish I didn't beat myself up over so much when I first started taking care of plants, because I literally would freak out over any plant that lost a leaf or two or whatever. Another one that I just think is the most, I don't want to say pointless because I don't want to make it sound like negative at all, and just, you know, to each their own and everybody takes care of their plants in the ways that they want to and all that sort of stuff. But I don't see a point in misting your plants every day. I understand every now and then, but a lot of times people will just like give it as vague instructions, almost like the watering schedule one. And they'll just say, yeah, mist daily or do whatever. And it's just, first of all, a lot of plants don't like to be wet, like constantly, like they don't like their leaves to be wet, and they'll often rot if you do and get like fungal infections and stuff like that. I think the only ones that I know of that don't mind it as much are calatheas because they thrive in humidity. And yeah, I used to miss my plants every day and it didn't do anything like when I did versus when I didn't. And I actually ran like a little like study to see if it did make a difference, and it literally made no difference at all for my plants. The only reason misting is considered like good or people do it is to create more humidity in the area, because most plants, if not all plants, like a bit higher humidity. And it's just, yeah, it's not necessarily like essential for you to mist your plants. It just doesn't make that much of a difference. But I mean, some people do swear by it, so if you want to, you can continue to do it. Just don't keep your leaves super wet all the time because it's just not good. So those are the main things that I wish I knew before getting into plants and before taking care of plants and all that sort of stuff. I wouldn't class them necessarily as like mistakes, but they're all things that I could have avoided mistakes from like early on when I was taking care of plants. So I hope you can avoid mistakes caused by these misconceptions or misunderstandings at the beginning of taking care of plants. And I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please hit the like button. and comment any others that you think I missed, because I know this isn't a super comprehensive list, but I just thought these were the most important bits for you to know before you got started. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you later.